Live. I know it says live, but until I see this little blue bar, then I'm never sure if it's live. So now it's there. Hey everyone, and welcome to Chef AJ Live. I'm your host, Chef AJ, and this is where I introduce you to amazing people like you who are doing great things in the world that I think you should know about. My guest today is broadcasting live all the way from Belgium. Her name is Emma Roche. She has a wonderful website, Plant Plate, and a wonderful book called Whole Food, Plant-Based on $5 a day. So if you think it's expensive to eat healthy, wait till you meet today's guest, who also is going to be doing a cooking demo. She's going to be making in the Instant Pot a cauliflower and pea pilaf and sweet potato oatmeal bars. This is my first time meeting her. I'm so excited. Please welcome Emma. It's so great to connect with you. Are you there? Uh-oh. Hi, Emma. Charles, can you please check what's going on? I'm not here.
Hello, it's so nice to be here. Thank you for having me. I'm here.
My pleasure. Okay, I just can't. There you go. If for some reason your sound went out for me in just a moment, could you please watch it and tell me if you can hear her?
Am I back?
Yes, you're back. No, you scared me for a minute. There you go.
Sorry.
Now we're having sound trouble.
Now the sound is being crazy.
I think it might. Okay, I think off.
Oh boy. This happens sometimes.
I wonder if it might be her Bluetooth microphone.
Emma, you know,
Sometimes
it's better not to use a Bluetooth. I don't know why, but sometimes we found, because I'm not hearing you.
If she has just a built-in mic.
Do you have a built-in mic? Can you guys
hear me now? Yeah,
people are saying you're coming in and out. I was hearing her fine, guys, before we connected, and welcome and thank you for
Oh, I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay. It's just that we want to hear you, obviously.
Is she breathing?
I'll come back. I'll take myself back on. So guys, sorry about this. Other countries, sometimes this happens. So hopefully we'll get her back, because if not, I don't know what I'm going to do.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Cindy can hear you.
Okay. My gosh, I'm so sorry. I tested this so many times to make sure I wouldn't have technical problems. So
it's just what's happening. There's a little lag with it.
Is it okay now?
Well, it's lagging. So guys, you have to help me in the chat and tell me how well you can hear her, because for me, she's lagging. It's like a...
Okay. I'm so sorry.
It's okay. She's in Belgium. You know, it's pretty far. She lags. Gina says she's lagging.
Wondering, is this better or is this the same?
Now it just came back on.
It just came back on.
Okay. That's better?
It's a little bit tinny, but you're not lagging. So that probably is better. Yes.
Okay. So I'm using the microphone on the camera. So if you have an echo or anything, just let me know. Sorry.
Yeah, it's a little bit of an echo, but I think it's better because at least they can hear you. So
okay. Oh, I'm so sorry.
All right. Take two, everybody. Thank you for your patience. We have Emma Roche from Plant Plate. She wrote a book called Whole Food Plant-Based on $5 a day, and she's going to be making two great recipes. It may help to quit and call back. That's a good suggestion, but let's see how she's doing now, Bulent, and it's working. So please welcome Emma.
Hi. It's still good. Great. Thank you. All right. Thanks for having me. Yeah, I don't know. What do you guys want to know? For starters,
Well, I'd love to know, first of all, when you became vegan, why you became vegan, and how did you get interested on $5 a day veganism?
So my journey probably started out around the age of 14 when I decided to be vegetarian. And at that same time, I became a little bit more interested in eating healthfully. And a few years after that, in 2004, I learned a bit more about veganism, and I decided that I would give it a go. And that was, I think, 17 years ago now. So obviously that stuck. And I sort of discovered a whole food plant-based diet when I read The China Study by Colin Campbell in 2010. And I was sort of already mostly eating that way. I was mostly eating whole grains and legumes and fruits and vegetables, but that kind of solidified to me that was, you know, the ideal way for me to eat in terms of health, but also, you know, for the animals and for the environment. And throughout that time, sort of, I think, you know, between 2008, 2010, 2011, I was living overseas for the first time. I was living on a budget, so I was having to eat this way at a really, really, really low cost. And then when I started the website, I would hear from people who wanted to eat this way but didn't think that they could afford to do it. And I knew from experience, of course, that you could. And so I decided, why not write a book, you know, and really prove to people that you can eat this way, that you can do it affordably, and that it doesn't have to, you know, break the bank to recover your health or improve your health.
You know, what's interesting is $5 a day in the United States. If you go into like a Starbucks and get one of those fancy drinks, that's almost $5.
It is. And it's astounding when you think about it in those terms as well.
Yeah, or even like, you know, people that get juices. I mean, juices, like if you go to a juice place and get a juice, it's $10, like for one beverage. If you go to, you know, if you eat out. So, I mean, that's incredible, because I wonder what people really spend to eat every day. Like if there's any websites that say what people spend, but $5 a day is $150 a month. And that sounds pretty reasonable, because I know what I spend a week, which is more than that, but
yeah. Well, it is. And really, when you put it in those terms, and that's when it really starts to, you know, it starts to make sense that people think that this way of eating is expensive when a juice costs $10, or a head of cauliflower costs $5, or a bunch of kale costs $5. So the point of the book really was to show people how you could do it, because of course you can say this is a really affordable way to eat and here's why, but without showing people how to do it, without kind of guiding them through the process of eating on that amount, it can be a little bit difficult. So it does take a bit of planning and preparation, and that's kind of what the book was for. And it is, as you said, it's a really, really, really low cost way to eat.
yeah, it's just, I can't wait to see it. Like you even we have the recipes in the show notes. And by show notes, I mean, you only see them if you're on YouTube. Sorry, Facebook people, hop on over to YouTube. But you even put the cost per serving of everything.
Yes, I did. And I didn't just take it from the book. I actually, because the book was written about 6 years ago, so I checked the current prices of the ingredients and updated it according to what I could find, you know, in the local supermarket here and in the United States, and then priced out all the ingredients.
Yeah, because you're not in the United States. You've lived in Europe, so it's not you don't use dollars. How were you able to? That's interesting that you were able to convert it for a United States audience.
Well, for the book, what I did was I did a lot of research online. So I picked, I think, 6 or 7 different supermarkets, and I priced all of the ingredients that I was using in the book at those different places. I think I used stores in California, in Texas, in New York, in Pennsylvania. So you had variety, and then I took all of those prices and I got the average price for each item, and that's how I worked out the costs for the book. And then I also did it in Australian dollars, and I also did it in British pounds as well, just to be really thorough and really certain that it was kind of a universal, you know, universally affordable thing.
That's neat. What's the vegan scene like in Belgium?
It's gaining traction. It's gaining a lot of traction. I moved here, I want to say about 8 or 9 years ago, and there wasn't a lot going on at the time. And just to see what's happened in the space of those 8 or 9 years is incredible. It's just exploded.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, your food isn't vegan. Your book isn't vegan on $5 a day. It's whole food, plant-based.
Yes.
And there's a difference, because it could be very expensive to be vegan if you eat a lot of the designer foods.
Exactly. And I think that's one of the things that causes the misconception, of course, the vegan meats and the vegan cheeses and the highly processed kind of specialty foods can be really, really expensive. And of course, the grains and the legumes and the potatoes and the vegetables, a lot of those things aren't. So it's kind of like a shift in mindset about what eating vegan is, from, you know, these more expensive specialty foods to really basic stable ingredients that you can pretty much find everywhere.
Are any of your friends or family members vegan? Were your books able to influence anyone in your social circle?
Yes, definitely. I have some friends who are vegan. I don't have any family members that are 100% vegan, but my mom eats predominantly whole food plant-based. My husband, of course, we live together, so he eats whole food plant-based 95% of the time. But yeah, I had a really large number of friends and family members who actually bought the book, used the book, cooked from the book, and kind of incorporated more of those foods into their diet. And I think a lot of people have actually made some pretty permanent changes to the way they eat.
And because your diet, your book is based on whole foods, it doesn't really matter where you're living in the world, right? Because they're accessible pretty much everywhere.
Yeah, that was another goal. I didn't want to put in any ingredients that people were going to have trouble finding. I didn't want anything that you really had to go hunting for. I wanted people to go, you know, to their regular supermarket and be able to find all of these things, whether they lived, you know, in California, whether they lived in Belgium, whether they were living in Sydney or London or Toronto. You know, these are things that you can find pretty much everywhere.
Yeah, well, I think that's a fantastic concept.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm very pleased with how it turned out. I'm very lucky it worked out at $5 a day as well. I was a bit worried for a bit that I might have overshot the mark, but it's definitely doable.
Yeah, because I had a lady on the show named Hope Ware who had a lot of advice for budgeting on a vegan diet, you know, using coupons and buying things that were in season or on special. And, you know, I would like to try some of these principles because I'm afraid to say what I spend. Well, okay. So for two of us, we spend about $200 a week. So that's $800 a month. So is that excessive, or could I think it really depends on what your priorities are, because I think if you're eating, I'm not entirely sure, but I'm assuming there's a lot of organic, you know, organic foods and organic produce. And of course, that's going to push your budget to be a little bit higher. If that's a priority for you, then there's nothing wrong with that because it's a great investment. But for people who, you know, are having to live on a budget out of necessity, perhaps, you know, they only have $30 or $40 a week to spend on food, or for people who want to save, you know, there's a lot of little bits and pieces, little things that you can do, and all of them do add up. So even if you are spending, you know, $200 a week and you end up saving $40 or $50 a week, you know, by making a few changes. Right. And also I think I could do better because I don't buy a lot of things in bulk that I could. I don't know why. I guess because when the pandemic started, I bought like the biggest bag of rice you could imagine. And it's now, you know, 14, 15 months later, and we still got that bag of
same bag of rice. Yeah. It's really funny that you bring that up, because I think the first couple of grocery trips that I did during the pandemic, it was hilarious because everybody was suddenly buying all the food that I normally buy. And for the first time in my life, I couldn't get the food that I like because everybody, instead of buying meat and cheese, they were buying rice and they were buying beans and they were buying pasta. So yeah, but yeah, the small principles, I think they help everybody. I heard from a couple in Australia a little while back who actually bought the book not because they wanted to save money. They wanted just to sort of a guide to eating whole food plant-based. But in the space of 2 months, they saved $600 on groceries.
That's fantastic.
So, you know, it's always a bonus. Definitely.
Do you make any recommendations? Because, you know, for equipment, because one of the things I hear when people are getting started is that, oh, you need so much equipment to do this. And it's not necessarily true, because I've been vegan for 44 years. I've only had an Instant Pot for 10 years. I've only had an air fryer for about 4 years. So I enjoy these pieces of equipment because they make my life easier and delicious now. But I had 40 years of veganism, you know, without them.
Yeah. Well, when I started the website, I was actually living in an apartment, a really small apartment, so a studio apartment. We didn't even have an oven. We had to buy, you know, we had a little convection oven that we had on a stand, and we had a stove, and that was it. That was our kitchen, you know. And so there's certainly things that can help make life easier. And I mean, like you said, I'm making the pilaf in the Instant Pot today. You can see it there in the background. So things like that I like, because I also like to save time in addition to saving money. But again, the book was really designed to be accessible to everybody. So if you don't have fancy kitchen gadgets, even if you don't have a blender or a food processor, you can make everything in the books, because I'm conscious of the fact that not everybody has those things in their kitchen or has the means to buy them either.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I love that. So you basically thought of everything and everyone.
I did my best.
Yeah. So I'm just curious, like where you've never really lived in the United States. So who did you hear about the plant-based diet from? Were there certain doctors? Because I know you're certified and I think with Starch Solution and with T. Colin Campbell. Where did you first start hearing about this?
Well, actually, my husband's from the United States. He's from Cleveland. And my sister, she lives in Washington. So I have a lot of connections to the US. And my husband actually recommended the China study to me. He read about it online, said, I think that this is a book that you would find really interesting. And he ordered it for me and I read it and he was right. It was pretty groundbreaking and pretty life-changing. And I think Forks Over Knives came out about 6 months after I read the China study. And that's how I found out about Dr. McDougall, Dr. Esselstyn, Dr. Greger, Dr. Brown, yourself, all of these fabulous people. And it was just kind of, just taking in everything that I could, reading everything that I could. It was, it was really great.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah. So if he read the China study, what the heck's he doing at 95%? Let's get him up to 100.
Well, he didn't read it. He bought it for me because it was my job.
That's hilarious.
You read it, you take it. That's not his attitude. He's very aware of the need to try to be 100%. So we're working on it. We're always working on it.
I'm looking at the PDF of your book, and it's really cool how you break down the weeks and the prices and the day by day. This would be a great place for people to start, especially the ones that say it's too expensive to eat healthy.
Yes, I hear that exactly why I did it, because I hear that all the time. And I do think that something that I take for granted is how easy it is to shop and how easy it is to plan my meals and what I need to buy. And of course, if you're coming to this way of eating from, a standard diet or eating out a lot, you're not going to have any of that knowledge or experience. So that's why it's laid out as a 4-week menu plan. And then every single week has the menu plan, the full grocery list, excuse me, all the instructions, preparation tips that you need, as well as the recipes. So yeah, it's kind of like a how-to guide for whole food plant-based as well.
And you know what I love? You have a recipe for an SOS-free hot sauce. That is so.
Oh yes.
I printed it out. I'm definitely going to make that. I'll probably
Thank you.
I wasn't sure what those chilies were, but you said you could use jalapenos, which are easy to find.
Use anything.
Yeah. The hot sauce is one of my favorite condiments because I don't use salt, and I find, hot sauce, you don't need very much. And it can change a dish from bland to grand. So thanks for having and it seems like a very easy recipe.
Super, super easy. We're both hot sauce addicts. We go through, you don't need much, but we do go through a lot of it. And there's no brands I can find here that are salt free. So I started making my own. And the bonus, of course, was that I think it cost me $4 or $5 US to make 3 or 4 bottles like this. And it's
right.
15 minutes.
One bottle of Brew Brothers hot sauce is like $7 to $9. So it's fantastic.
Yeah, even a bottle of Tabasco here is $4. So
that is so cool. So would you like to start one of your recipes?
Yeah, I'd love to. So I'm going to start with the pilaf. So in the book, it's made on the stove, obviously, because not everybody has an Instant Pot, but I thought it would be fun today to make it in the Instant Pot because, a lot of people that watch your show have one, and it's super, super, super easy to do. So I'm just going to bring all of these forward, and I hope it's not. My apartment is really echoey, so.
Is your book in United States measurements or European measurements? Because I was looking at a recipe that I wanted to make from it called potato and broccoli chowder. And it said 3 pounds, 1.3 kilograms of potatoes. And then it said 1 kilogram frozen broccoli florets. I don't know how much that is in pounds.
A kilo?
Mm-hmm.
It's 2.2 pounds.
Okay, good.
Yeah, it's a lot of soup is what it is.
So a kilo. So if we got so you probably just get a 2-pound bag because there's
just a 2-pound bag. That's how I always do it. I say a kilo, 2 pounds. I just round it down. That's the easiest way
Well,
to do
that's
it.
kind of cool because for people that are struggling with weight, they should just weigh themselves in kilograms.
There you go. And then it'll make you feel twice as good or 2.2 times as good before.
Yeah.
All right. So the main ingredient, of course, is brown rice. And I've rinsed this already. So that's 2 cups. And that's pre-rinsed. And then this is optional. You can use water, but this is kind of my secret ingredient. This is my homemade vegetable broth. So I've got 2.5 cups of that. And just quickly, I'll show you, this is what I do every week. I know a lot of people do this. I save all the skins and all the ends and all the bits and pieces from my vegetables when I'm cooking. And I keep one of these in the freezer and I add to it every time I cook. And then at the end of the week, I use that to make a big pot of vegetable broth. So that's what's in there. It's got no salt, no oil, no sugar. It's completely free. So it's the best low-cost way to add a lot more flavor and depth to whatever you're cooking, to soups, to stews, to this dish. And then we've got 2 medium carrots. Those are diced, not very finely. Chop them up, they'll cook in time, however you cut them. Medium onion, also diced. The great thing about this recipe as well, you can use kind of whatever vegetables you like. So if you've got peppers that you need to use up, if you've got broccoli, if you've got zucchini, whatever, it's all good. This is a 1/4 cup, I think. Should check my recipe. It's a 1/4 cup of oil-free raisins. And that just adds a nice bit of sweetness. If you don't like raisins, you can leave them out, or you can substitute something else. You can use dates or apricots. And then we've got 2 cloves of garlic. Of course, you can use more if you're a big fan of garlic. I'm sticking to the recipe just for budget's sake. And then I'm going to add spices. So for starters, this is a tablespoon of curry powder. Just a curry powder blend. Actually, while I'm on the subject.
You know, you just had me realize where I could do better budgetarily if I wanted to, is I tend to go for convenience. So I'll buy peeled garlic cloves, which are convenient, but they're more expensive than if I just bought the garlic in a bulb.
That is true. Again, there are all these little small things, small changes you can make. You do, and that is the thing, you do tend to pay more for convenience. And I do it from time to time as well. You know, some weeks my priority is just to get in the kitchen and get it done. And so I will spend a little more on food. But if you have the time, you know, doing everything yourself is generally the cheapest way to go. I just wanted to mention, while I was putting the spices in here, I've got a curry powder blend, and this is another great way to save money if you can. I buy these, well, these are single spices. So I've got turmeric and cumin and cinnamon, and I've got some spice blends, and I buy these at a local Indian grocery store. And this is, I think, each of these is about 3.5 ounces, 100 grams, and it's 99 cents. That is literally, I think, 1/4 or 1/5 of the price of what I would have to pay in the supermarket. So all of my dried herbs and spices, I don't buy them in the supermarket. I buy them either at an Indian grocer's, or we have some fantastic Lebanese and Turkish grocery stores that sell them as well. And they're salt-free. There's nothing else in them.
Emma, that's a terrific tip, because any ethnic market, you know, as long as if somebody isn't married to 100% organic all the time, ethnic markets, it's incredible how cheap beans and grains. I mean, 50 cents a pound for legumes, because we have different ethnicities here. Sometimes they're Latino, sometimes they're Asian markets, Armenian, but like the prices are just ridiculous. Like the Hannah yams that I buy organic at Whole Foods for, you know, $1.99 a pound will be like, you know, 49 cents. It's crazy.
Yes,
So, right. That's just a great tip to shop there. And also spices in bulk, also so much cheaper than buying the pre-made spice blends.
Yeah, and it's actually one of the tips that I have in my book is to shop around if you can at ethnic markets, because I mean, I have so many just in this neighborhood. I think I have 8 to 10. And then if I go a little bit further down the road, we've got Chinese and Thai and Vietnamese markets. And also they stock all of these spices. And it's just, again, like you said, legumes, 50 cents a pound. Even whole grains, a lot of whole grains at the Turkish grocery store, they've got whole wheat and whole barley and buckwheat and all kinds of fantastic things. Way, way, way cheaper than they are in the supermarket. So I've got, this is my other secret ingredient for the pilaf. This is cinnamon. So this is another little bit of sweetness. You don't need much for this. I use about 1/8 teaspoon. And then I've got cayenne pepper here. You can use a chili powder, any kind of chili powder that you like. And about 1/4 teaspoon of that. You can add more if you want it spicier. And then I've also got some cumin. I don't normally measure spices, so this is a bit foreign to me. I just kind of wing it and throw them in for the most part. So I've got a teaspoon of cumin in there as well. And then that's it for the base. And we're going to put this in the Instant Pot. Just give it a stir first, just to make sure that everything is spread out evenly. That's it. Pop that in. And I always use the manual setting for this. And I put it on for 22 minutes. And then I'm going to do 5 minutes of a natural release, and then we're going to do a quick release, and then we're going to add everything else at the end. So like I said, you can use any vegetables that you like, but what we'll do is once that's finished cooking, we've got some thawed frozen peas and thawed frozen cauliflower florets, and we're going to put that in and just let the heat from the rice cook those through right before we serve them.
Do you have, and we have things in the United States like Walmart and the 99-cent store where you can even get organics really affordably. Is there any equivalent to that in Europe?
No, that is one thing that that I don't see. Although there are a lot of really really good cheap supermarkets. So you've got places like Aldi and places like Lidl, and those are regular supermarkets, but they're really really budget friendly, and they also have their own range of organic products. They'll have different grains and legumes. They'll have a lot of organic fruits and vegetables. They won't stock everything all the time. So you kind of have to go in and see what they've got when you're there and maybe stock up on something while they have it, while it's on special. So those stores are great, but yeah, nothing as cheap as like the Walmart or the dollar stores in the States.
Right. Yeah. Aldi's is very popular here. I just went on your website so I could post some links so people could get your books. And I noticed you have one called Eating Plant-Based for $3 a Day. How did you take down an additional $2?
Well, I always knew that I could. It was an experiment that I did a few years ago, and I just never got around to sort of publishing the results. And then COVID hit last year, and I actually was still employed, but on unemployment because of the sector that I was in was shut down. And so I thought, oh, this is a really great time to, to show people, a lot of people are struggling, struggling financially throughout last year. So I thought it would be a great way to show people, how to eat on the even lower budget in case people were, really struggling financially, that it might be helpful to them. And then I used the money from that ebook to donate to a couple of charities in Australia during that whole thing that I thought, it was a good time to do something like that.
Nice. In your bio that you sent me, it says you've done things for Dr. McDougall. What have you done with Dr. McDougall? He's one of my faves. He
is fantastic. His whole family is great. I actually do food photography for the McDougals.
I had no idea. Well,
yeah,
he's beautiful. See, that's fantastic. What are they photographing though? Because I don't think they have photos in their books.
No. So I'm doing a lot of. They're actually in the process of updating their website, and for a while now, I've been doing just recipe photos for the recipes on their website.
Wow, I had no idea.
It's fantastic. Of course, I get to cook and eat all these amazing foods, and then I send them photos to use on the website. And not all of them are by me, but a lot of the ones that you're seeing, particularly right now, are photos that I've taken for them. So yeah,
very cool.
it's very exciting to be able to work with them. Yeah, he's one of my big heroes as well. So
Great.
So I'm going to get started on the second recipe, which is a sweet one, if that's all right.
Yeah.
So I'm making sweet potato oatmeal bars, and it's actually, I think it's very similar to something that was made on the show yesterday. So I'm sorry for that, everybody.
Not at all, because he didn't use sweet potatoes yesterday.
Okay, so there we go. But it was great. It's a similar idea, but a couple of different ingredients, and again, really, really easy to make. And this is also sugar-free, no added sugar, only sweetened with fruits and, of course, sweet potatoes. So I've got a pound, I think, 500 grams, half a kilo, a pound of sweet potatoes that I've peeled, and I've pre-cooked these. So, oops. So cook them however you like. You can steam or boil or microwave them, whatever. And then I've also got 3/4 of a cup of chopped dates here. And I've soaked those, you can see I've soaked them in water for about half an hour. And this is because I actually buy dried dates at the moment instead of fresh, because I can get pitted dried dates for about $3 a pound, whereas the fresh ones are a lot more expensive than that. So if you're using dried ones, make sure that you hydrate them, otherwise they're going to stay dry and you're not going to get a lot of sweetness out of them. And then just pop those in with the sweet potato. And another tip, I always save I don't know if you can see that, I save the soaking liquid from the dates and I use that. You can actually use it in this recipe. The recipe underneath actually says to use plant milk. So that's what I'm doing today. But actually you can just as easily use the liquid from the dates instead. And then it'll be sweeter as well, which is kind of nice. So this is something I make to have in the freezer, actually, for when I don't have time to make breakfast. And then I grab a couple of them and I warm them up. And then I've always got them on hand as well. If we want a snack, or if someone comes over for morning tea or afternoon tea, then I've got something that's whole food plant-based, but something that other people are going to enjoy as well. All right. So I'm just using a regular, again, nothing fancy, just a regular potato masher. But I will say you should not blend this or puree it. If you do that, you're going to end up with bars that are kind of rubbery and hard. So just mash it. You can have some lumps. A few lumps of sweet potato or dates is totally fine.
Can you get all the different types of sweet potatoes in Europe like we get here, like the Japanese, the Murasaki, the Hawaiian, the Hana yam?
No, unfortunately I can't. And I'm a huge, huge sweet potato fan. So I can get, actually, from time to time, if I go to the Chinese and the Thai supermarkets, they've got the purple sweet potatoes, and they've also got I think it's the kumara with the white flesh and the purple outside. I'm not sure, but I love them. And so whenever they have them, I'll be there and I'll be buying up a whole heap of them because I absolutely love them. But for the most part, we can only get the regular ones, and they're actually surprisingly expensive here too. So I also buy these at the Indian and the Lebanese groceries. They're, I think, about half or a third of the price that they are in the supermarket. So then we've got 1.5 teaspoons of ground cinnamon. And if you've got other spices, you can add those as well. So I will often put ground ginger in there. I'll put some allspice. I'll put some nutmeg. You can use any of those. And then we're also going to add a 1/4 cup of unsweetened applesauce. This is a store-bought one because I was a bit short on time this week, but you can just make them from pureed, cooked pureed apples as well.
Yeah, applesauce is one of the easiest things to make in the Instant Pot.
Super easy, yes. And I ran out of apples this week, so I had to run to the shop and buy some. But it's it's something that I normally do. Normally I buy up, I don't know if you guys have this as well. Right now in the supermarkets, they've started selling the ugly produce. So you can get, the misshapen and the kind of spotted fruits and vegetables, and they'll sell them in a big bag at a really low price. So I normally buy those apples. I think they're usually around $1.99 for, 2 or 3 kilos. And then I use those to make applesauce in the Instant Pot.
Yeah, like it's called like misfit produce or things like that here.
Yeah, things like that as well. It has some strange Dutch name that I won't attempt to say in case any Dutch speakers are watching at the moment. So I've got plant milk here. You can use any variety of plant milk. Obviously oil. This one's oil-free. It's got no added sugar. But like I said, you can also use the soaking liquid from the dates. And so that's kind of the first step, is all those ingredients. Just mix them together until the liquid's incorporated with the sweet potato. It's not, it'll look sort of like this. Looks better when it's cooked, that's for sure.
Here's a great question from Michelle, who's watching live. Are there foods that you recommend to always buy? I follow the Dirty Dozen to always buy organic. I wonder if you recommend that or any other foods.
Oh, that's a really, really good question. But to always buy organically?
Or maybe just to always buy in general.
Just general foods that you should always have?
Yeah, I think that's how I'm interpreting the question.
Okay. Yeah, definitely. I actually have a whole tray of food that I can't fit over here now, but things that I always keep on hand, things that are, ingredients that I cook with every single week and that are really, really low cost as well, are brown rice. I've always got old-fashioned oats. I've always got legumes, beans, lentils, dried ones, and canned ones, just in case I get caught out, and don't have any cooked. Always have potatoes, sweet potatoes. Always have onion, garlic, and carrots. And I always have ground flaxseed in my freezer as well. And herbs and spices, like I said, and that's kind of my building block for everything that I make. And then I add in lots of different, fresh and frozen fruits and vegetables. I also always have frozen vegetables in my freezer. So frozen kale, spinach, corn, peas, all that stuff. It keeps well, it's prepped, it's super easy. And I can get organic frozen vegetables cheaper than I can get organic fresh vegetables. So.
Yeah, I noticed that that's often true, and they're just as nutritious, sometimes even more so. Yeah.
Exactly, especially when things are out of season. Really, I can never get kale here. It's very, I don't know why, but it's very difficult to get fresh kale, but frozen kale is super cheap, always available. So I always have that.
People are asking, Emma, is your book on Amazon?
It is not on Amazon. No, it was a bit difficult for me with the, trying to work it out between Belgium and Australia and the United States. So I've just self-published it on Blurb. So actually the only place to get the hard copy book is on Blurb, but that will ship directly from the US. If you live in Australia, it will ship from within Australia. If you live in Europe, it will ship from within Europe. So it'll get to you really fast.
I've been posting the link in both the chat and the show notes. If people want to click on it. Said Chef AJ rocks for a 30% discount on the ebook.
Yes. Yeah, so the ebooks are available. Again, the best place to go is to my website to find the links, or you're posting the links for the ebooks. The ebooks are available on PayHip. And like AJ said, if you use the code Chef AJ rocks at the checkout, everyone can have 30% off all of the ebooks. Because I'd like as many people to sort of read about this subject and be able to share this information with other people. You know, the more people that know how affordable it is to eat this way, the more people we might get on board. So that's kind of my thinking. So once you've got the wet ingredients together, we're going to add the dry ones. So I've got 2 cups of old-fashioned oats, and you can of course use certified gluten-free oats if you want to make this gluten-free. And I've got a cup of whole wheat flour. And if you want to make these gluten-free, then I would suggest just using a cup of ground gluten-free oats. And if you're going to do that, add a little bit of extra liquid as well. I'd add an extra 2 or 3 tablespoons of liquid, just so it doesn't dry out. And then the last ingredient I've got is 1.5 teaspoons of baking powder. This is aluminum-free baking powder. It's not baking soda. Don't confuse the two, because if you do, it will taste terrible.
The way I learned the difference was from a pastry chef who was my mentor, Chef Eric Lechasseur. He said, you think of it, baking soda, S, soda, spreads, powder, poofs, S and P.
That's really good. I've for a long time been trying to think of the best way to differentiate between the two. I've had some baking hiccups in the past where I've confused the two because I've got them unlabeled in my drawer or something, and yeah, it's not a good mix up to make. So you can see here, it's really firm. It's not really like a cake batter. It's more sort of halfway between a cake batter and a bread. And you just want to really gently fold the oats and the flour through until it's literally just combined. I don't know if you found the same thing, AJ. If you're baking plant-based, and I think especially if you're baking without oil, if you overmix things, they end up really rubbery and chewy, and the texture is just not good. So be really careful not to overmix it. But of course, check that you don't have flour left at the bottom. And then this can just go into a pre-lined baking dish. So I'm using an 8 by 10 inch dish that I've just lined with some parchment paper. And if you've got silicone sheets, of course, I think those are even better. I usually have them for baking with, but I'm all out at the moment.
Yeah, that's another thing I learned from Chef Eric, not to overmix baked goods in general, but vegan ones in particular.
Yes. I think the first time I ever attempted an oil-free vegan muffin, they sort of grew out the side and was not good. So
if it's not too personal, if your husband's American, what does he do? Something that he needs to be in Belgium to do?
Yeah, so for he doesn't need to be in Belgium. I think he was a musician. He was a full-time musician for many years, and he was spending a lot of time touring in Europe. So at a certain point, it just made more sense for him to be here. So he's been here for about 15 years now, 15 or 16 years. He's not a full-time musician anymore. He's also a computer programmer. So that's like, you know, the secondary occupation. But yeah, so that's what brought him to Europe, playing music, and that's how we met as well, actually. So that's how we ended up here.
That's very cool.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, he also, I think, because I think Chef AJ, you're in.
I'm near Palm Springs now. I used to live in LA, but I live close to Palm Springs.
So he also lived in Palm Desert for a number of years.
That's like right over there. That's
right next door. Yeah. So we were there a couple of years ago. He was also, he was playing music with people out there as well. So.
Wow, because we have the big, well, not with the pandemic, but when it's not a pandemic, Coachella, we have a big music festival here.
Massive. Yeah. Yeah. It's a beautiful, beautiful part of the world as well. It's very inspiring for music too, I think.
That is so cool.
Yeah. So you can see I'm spreading this out, which takes a while because, like I said, it's really thick. But you really want to take the time to do this if you can, because it'll ensure that it bakes evenly, if it's even.
It's important. Mandy says thank you for the discount. She's going to get your books today.
Oh, thank you, Mandy. That's awesome. All right. So normally my oven's not preheated because it's horribly loud. So I'm going to spare you guys that today. But normally it should be at 355 Fahrenheit, which is 180 Celsius. And that will go in for about 25 minutes until it's done. And then you really want to let it sit and cool for, 20 minutes, half an hour before you try to cut it so that it doesn't fall apart. And I was organized and I made some of these so you guys could see how they turn out in the end. So I've actually cut these into 12. So the recipe says that they make 10 and they worked out at about 40 cents each, I think. But I've actually made 12 and you can see they're still a really good size. So these are more like 35 cents a piece, which for, I'll have a couple for breakfast, maybe with some soy yogurt, but even as a snack, you can see the texture is really good. They've got no added sugar. They've got no added oil. Really, really delicious. People who aren't whole food plant-based really enjoy these. Sometimes I'll drizzle a little bit of maple syrup on top, for people that like things a little bit sweeter, but even without, really delicious and something that everybody likes.
That was easy.
Super easy. Yeah. I don't like to complicate things. I think in general, all of the recipes in the books and on the website are really, really easy to follow.
Do you have like a routine of what you eat in a day or do for exercise? People always like to know what our guests do.
Yeah, one moment, sorry. I turned the heat up in my kitchen, which was a mistake. I'm pretty consistent, with my eating. I have to get up pretty early for work, so I've got to eat something that's really fast and convenient. So I make something like this maybe once a week, but then most often I have overnight oats. So I'll have some oats with flax and berries and a little bit of soy yogurt. That's kind of my standard breakfast. And then for lunch, I, 6 out of 7 days have what I had for dinner the night before. It's just, I don't know, it just makes life easier. And I like to cook in bulk. I think that's another great way to save money is to batch cook. I'll make a soup or a stew or a chili or a curry and I'll make 8 servings. And then we kind of just work our way through it during the week. We might have it for dinner one night and then for lunch the next day, we'll freeze some. We'll have it again later in the week. And if I'm short on time, sometimes for lunch, I'll just have baked potatoes. Just literally baked potatoes with, this is another thing that I make a lot, which is red salsa. So it's just, just a simple cooked salsa. It's got tomatoes and onions and garlic and spices. The recipe is also on Plant Plate. Because again, finding a salt, oil, and sugar-free salsa is pretty much impossible here. So that's another thing I do for lunch. Just potatoes, baked potatoes, salsa, hot sauce, super simple. And then for dinner, it's a lot of what you see in the books and on my website. I'm a big starch eater. I love rice and potatoes, and I eat whole wheat pasta and a lot of different whole grains and potatoes, different vegetables. Sometimes I'll have a really big salad. Sometimes I'll make like a stir fry or different. I really love spicy food, so I make a lot of curries and a lot of chilies. And that's pretty much it. And in the day, I eat fresh fruit in between meals. And I also put out a big box of raw vegetables in the afternoon. So me and my husband will just stand around snacking on celery and carrots and peppers and everything like that.
Were you always a healthy eater, Emma, even before you were plant-based?
I think relatively, I think not relative to now, but I think relative to most people, yeah. My mom was fairly health conscious. We weren't vegan or even vegetarian, but she cooked, there was always vegetables at every meal. She would sneak legumes into everything, which I really didn't like at the time, but have come to appreciate now. She'd always put beans and lentils and things. And She cooked a lot without oil. She did a lot of like water sauteing and broth sauteing when I was growing up. So I wasn't used to eating a lot of really heavy, fatty foods, and junk food was really, you know, fast food was rare, and we always took fruit as a snack to school, you know. So even in the house, we didn't have a lot of junk food. So yeah, it's kind of my norm really, but I've progressively become healthier as I've gotten older as well.
Wow. So no health issues or weight issues then? Never?
No, I think I'm pretty much the same weight that I was in high school. So I'm pretty lucky in that respect, yeah.
Wow, that's cool. Yeah, because you never had to take a detour through junk food veganism.
Oh, I did, but not full time, just part time. I think because I was very health conscious when I was vegetarian, interestingly enough. And then when I went vegan, all of a sudden I had an interest in eating everything that was vegan. So just because it was vegan, I wanted to try it. So there was a few years when I first became vegan that I ate a lot of like fake meats and pastries and ice creams, and then I sort of realized that I felt better, you know, when I ate predominantly whole foods and healthy foods.
Yeah, because a lot of people just don't get the oil part, you know?
Yeah. And that was the last thing, probably the last thing to go for me, because when I was living on a budget and eating on a budget, I didn't cook with oil just because it was expensive. So it was just an easy way for me to save money, was just to use water or broth to saute my vegetables. So it kind of became my norm as a money saving technique. And then wasn't until I read the China study that I actually read about avoiding oils for health reasons, but it made perfect sense to me immediately. But it's sort of, yeah, it's the last thing to go for a lot of people. And it's something a lot of people still don't understand. Even a lot of people that are vegan or trying to be plant-based, they don't sort of fully understand the importance of avoiding it for health reasons.
Right. Are the bars chewy? I lost the chat, guys. Sorry. So I'm trying to remember the questions, but people
are the bars chewy? They're not super soft, and they're not super hard. It depends on how long you cook them for. You can cook them for less. So they're kind of chewy. I'll show you. Maybe you can see texture wise, you know, they're a little bit chewy. They've got a good texture. It's almost like a baked oatmeal, really, like in terms of consistency.
And I bet they freeze really well.
They freeze really well. I have to keep them in the freezer or they'll be gone by morning.
That's great. That's so cool. Do you have a lot of fast food in Belgium, like American fast food places like McDonald's or things like that?
They exist, but their presence is not as strong. I'll just put it that way. So I think I live, right now I live in a city called Antwerp. So it's one of the biggest cities in Belgium. And I think there's 2 McDonald's in the whole city. So a Burger King's just opened up, and there's a few Pizza Huts, but it's definitely not the level that it is. When you go to the US, it's even coming from Australia, it's much more visible. There's more of them. There's a lot more.
Do you have Wendy's?
Nope. But I have been to Wendy's to get baked potatoes.
Yeah, because I was going to say, if you're going to have fast food, that would be the best one to have, because you can get a baked potato.
Yeah, I've spent many road trips thanking Wendy's for you know, solving my hunger on very, very, very long road trips in the States.
That is so funny. Well, wow. I mean, this was great. I mean, you made the recipes easily, deliciously, and inexpensively. What more could people want?
Thank you. This one still has about 9 minutes to go, but I'm quickly going to show you how to finish it up, because I've got an extra one. Like I said, I always make a double of everything. If I'm buying the ingredients, I buy them in bulk. I'll cook twice as much, and I'll freeze whatever we don't eat. So once the pilaf is cooked in the pressure cooker, the base will look like this. And then you can literally just add in the rest of the ingredients, and we'll serve this up as well, so you can see the final product. So when this is done in the pressure cooker, like I said earlier, You want to let it do a natural release for 5 minutes, and then you can do a quick release. And then take the lid off and just put the vegetables in. Like I said, these are frozen, they're thawed. If you're going to use fresh, you can use fresh, obviously. Just make sure that you steam them first so that they're soft. So that's 2 cups of peas and about a pound of cauliflower florets. And when you take the lid off the pressure cooker, obviously everything's going to be really hot. So if you mix those vegetables through, the heat from the rice is going to finish cooking them, is going to heat them. And then you can pop the lid back on the Instant Pot for 5 minutes just to make sure it's really hot. And then that's it. It's done. And when I serve this, this is also in the recipe, I've got some toasted flaked almonds here. So I've just bought flaked almonds and toasted them in a pan. They only need about a minute in a hot pan. And then you can leave these out, of course. If you're avoiding nuts or you're allergic to nuts, they just add a nice bit of, you know, texture and flavor, but they're not vital. I like a bit of pepper. And then, of course, the homemade hot sauce, which goes on everything.
Definitely.
But like you said,
I'm definitely
sorry.
trying that recipe. Do you keep it in the refrigerator, your homemade hot sauce?
I do keep it in the refrigerator just to make it, because there's no salt in it. Of course, the vinegar helps it last, but just to be on the safe side, I pretty much always keep it in the fridge. And like you said, if you are avoiding salt, it's just, I think the tang of the vinegar kind of, it adds something to the dish, you know? It really just kind of gives it a little bit more flavor in the absence of salt. And so that's it. And I think we said this one worked out at about $1.60 per serve. So you can see, you know, between these two things, how with the planning and using those techniques that we were talking about earlier, things like buying in bulk and shopping around at different stores and menu planning and just shopping for what you need, you can see how you could eat this way for $5 a day, because, you know, 3 meals like this, $4.80, easy.
Yeah. How did you hook up with Dr. McDougall, being from another country?
I think it was not long after I started the website. I think they had asked people to submit recipes for their newsletter, and I submitted some of mine, and they ended up saying, oh, we really love your food photos. Would you be interested in doing some food photography for us? And I, of course, said, I'd love to. And that was it. I think that was, yeah, several years ago now.
That is such a cool story. I love it. And you told me a cool story before we came on. We never knew each other. I think I found you on Instagram, and you said you were actually watching the show the day Mary McDougall was on and had a thought, boy, that'd be fun to go on that show. And then I contacted you.
It was so strange. I had to, it was just, I hadn't watched the show for a while. I hadn't been online very much. And I thought, I've got to watch this episode. And it's just great. You guys have, you know, such a look like you're having so much fun, and I love the show. And so I just thought, thought just occurred to me how fun it would be to be on, and that exact afternoon is when you wrote to me.
So everybody out there, if you have a thought, think it, and I'll contact you.
Positive. Yeah, there you go. You'll be very busy, I think, if that happens.
That is so great. Old Pueblo Vegan. Wait, I saw a comment from him that I want to read. Where? Oh yes. How can you resist Belgian fries?
Well, a lot of them are cooked in ox fat, so that's an easy way for me to resist them. Yeah, I think fried food, I make a lot of fries. My oven is fantastic. I know a lot of people have air fryers now because they're great at making everything crispy. I don't own one because my oven is magical, and it makes everything, you know, super, super delicious and crispy. So I make oven fries almost probably 3 or 4 times a week for snacks or for dinner or something like that. So that kind of helps make it easier, I think, to resist the fried version. You can eat twice as much of them and not feel sick afterwards. But yeah, fried foods never really sat very well with me. It kind of makes me feel unwell. So
Yeah, same here. I'm sorry, I really don't know. Are Belgian fries different? What are they?
well, they kind of originated here. So they're, you know, they're really famous for their fries. And they're called fritures, fry shops, you know, and they're everywhere. They are very, you know, kind of have the same presence that fast food would have in the United States. They're really everywhere.
Are they cut thick? Are they cut thin? Are they cut in a certain shape?
They're pretty thin, and I think they're like cooked twice, so they're really crispy. And then, you know, it's a tradition. It's a big tradition, along with the chocolate and the beer, as we were talking about.
I mean, like ox fat. Who would even think? Like, where do you even get an ox? I mean, there's no.
I have no idea. I didn't even know actually up until recently that was still very common. Yeah.
That is crazy. So what do you do for fun there?
What do I do for fun? That's a great question. My husband and I play music, so we spend a lot of time outside of COVID, you know, like going to concerts and playing music and yeah, just, you know, just regular everyday stuff. I like taking walks. I like seeing friends. I like cooking. I spend a lot of time in my kitchen. Yeah, and that's pretty much it. Besides working, and I've also got a 15-year-old stepson, so we spend a lot of time, you know, hanging out and doing stuff together as a family.
Wow, nice.
Yeah.
So Christopher says, thank you for this. I have a story that eating healthy is too expensive. This really helps change my story.
Okay. Oh, that's great. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah. Well, I guess the next book is Eating Healthy on $2 a day. We keep going down.
We keep going down. Eventually, it'll be free.
Yeah. Well, that would be water fasting.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly.
Which actually, if you go to the True North Health Center, isn't free. But thank you. You've just been a delightful guest. It was so nice getting to meet you. And I really appreciate your work, because now I'll have another, when people say it's too expensive to be vegan, I'm like, oh, really? Because I see people doing it for $3 to $5 a day.
Just hold it up and say, I've got proof otherwise. Yeah, that's really great. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm glad to be able to get the message out to more people.
Because you couldn't print it if it wasn't true. Has your pressure cooker come up to pressure yet?
It's got 1 minute left.
Yeah, well, we may as well wait. We love to hear those 10 beeps, don't we?
We do.
So I always wonder though, with Instant Pot, aren't plugs different in Europe? Like do you have to get like a European version of it?
Yeah, I have a European version. I think I ordered this from a website in Germany, actually, a few years ago. So I've got the European plug. You can actually change it to a UK one as well, but the voltage is different in the US. Okay.
That's what I've been waiting for.
So you do have to have a European one, but they're very easy to get here as well. There you go. It's done.
That only sounded like 9 beeps. We have 10 here. Oh, Scout wants, I love that name, Scout, by the way, is I think of To Kill a Mockingbird, is the cookbook in metric?
The cookbook is in both. So everything, there might be a couple where it's missing, and that would have just been an oversight on my part in the editing. But as I said, the measurements are US measurements, but when anything that is listed in weight is in both. It's got both imperial and metric weight measurements.
That's fine. Like, are you able to get like specialty items? Like there are things, I mean, I'm spoiled here, but things like Benson's Table Tasty or the California balsamic vinegars, maybe not those brands, but you know, things like those, salt-free seasonings, reduced balsamic vinegar.
The balsamic vinegar is not so much. There's a store that sells them, but I'm pretty sure they're all sweetened. So they're delicious, but there's a lot of sugar in them. We can get a few flavored vinegars, but nothing like the range that you have there with the California balsamics. There are a few really good ranges of salt-free seasonings and spice blends that I can get. They're a bit more expensive than the ones that I would normally buy, but I keep a few of them in my pantry. I really love them for the oven fries, or if I'm doing like a roasted cauliflower or something, the salt-free seasonings are really nice to have.
Right. Do you do a healthy version of Belgian waffles?
I have, yeah. I don't have a waffle maker at the moment, unfortunately. But when I did, I didn't have my own recipe. But I don't know if do you know Fat-Free Vegan website?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get her on the show. She doesn't want to come. I love her.
Oh, well, her recipes are fantastic. So I actually just would use her waffle recipe since it was a sure thing. But yeah, you've reminded me actually that might be the next gadget I invest in.
Wow, this is the first time I got a super chat donation in European funds. So thank you, Lionel. I have no idea how much that is, but thank you. I really have to learn how the metric system works. You know, growing up, I remember being in first grade. That was like 56 years ago, them saying, well, you know, US is going on the metric system. And now 56 years later, we're still not. And I still don't.
It didn't happen.
You know, that is funny. Well, you're just delightful and I appreciate your work so much. And it's such a pleasure to meet you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me on. It's been wonderful.
Yeah, and I'm so glad we got the sound to work. That was just
me too. I was having a mild panic there for a
yeah. Sometimes the Bluetooth just that's is an easy fix like that. So thank you so much, Emma. And guys, check out the link in the chat box and in the show notes. Get 30% discount on these wonderful ebooks that are beautifully photographed. So much so that Dr. McDougall uses Emma as his food photographer. So that's quite an honor. So thanks again, Emma, and thanks all of you for watching another episode of Chef AJ Live. Today we're in Belgium. Tomorrow we'll be about 2.5 hours away. We'll be broadcasting from the Netherlands when my guest, Colette Mott, is going to also be doing a bunch of wonderful, healthy, and inexpensive breakfast ideas. Take care, and thanks again, Emma. Bye-bye.